And we have a super fun topic for tonight, something we all know and love, our beautiful Earth.
Yes, absolutely. Our in fact, there is my wife was for the most part adamant that we had this as a topic. So Earth Day, I think, is her favorite. If I don't know if it's a holiday, but if there were holidays, if Earth Day was a holiday, hands down, Earth Day is her favorite holiday, and it's coming up. So I think it's Saturday, the 22nd, I do believe.
Yes, you got that right, Bart.
Yes, which is also the day I will be back on tour. I will be back speaking in Atlanta on the 22nd, which is Earth Day, as I just mentioned there. So a lot of things going on this weekend. And so tonight we are going to talk about Earth Day, but we're going to do it in a couple of different ways. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And hopefully leaving everyone with the kind of the idea and the consciousness about that we can do something and it's not that hard. And that's and again, Health Made Simple show. We're going to make this as simple as can be, that we can be having an impact on this wonderful thing that we call Mother Earth. And we'll dive into that in just a little bit. So, but before we start, welcome back everyone. And I do want to start with some clinical insights.
Perfect. And those are so cool, Bart. Like you're drawing these stories that are of use for all of us just from these kind of like in-person conversations you're having.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So these, if you're new to the show, welcome. Of course, love having you. If you're back again, I love having you as well. Thank you for being here. So the clinical insights are literally conversations that I'm having while I'm in clinic that I think would be relevant for probably everyone to hear, because I think somehow they could benefit or relate. So two simple ones. This is one I'm surprised I've never said this one before, because it comes up. I think it comes up every time, the first time I'm in clinic of the week. So today's Tuesday. I'm not in the clinic on Monday. So this is kind of like the first time I practice after the weekend. And so I have this one particular guy in mind, but it really falls true for, true for so many different people. So this is the situation. So gentleman comes in, and as usual, I'll say, how we doing? If you're taking good care of yourself, how you moving, how you eating, how you thinking. And there's always some version of that as my greeting. And says, well, you know how it goes. It was the weekend. And along with the weekend came travel. I believe it was someone's birthday. And then the conversation shifted to, but I'm back on track. I want to make a note about that. So listen, I know we're going to get off track. Yet when you get back on track, you still have a debt to pay. And this is the reason I'm bringing this up. So let's just say over the weekend, let's say you're trying to save money. You're trying to you're trying to save up for something. Over the weekend, though, you went and you had a spending spree and spent $500. On Monday, when you get back, you owe $500. You don't just get the $500 back. We make this mistake about our health. We think just getting back to normal is going to compensate and make up for what we spent. And that's not really the truth. You literally have to hunker down more. So this isn't a never world. And I agree 100% when people say, well, you can't always do perfect. No, but the times that you got to make up for those moments that you got off track. So, and I often relate it to, I try to keep it as real as we can inside, the clinic. People say, well, doc, why is this going on? I said, listen, we're not 50, we're not 20 anymore, right? Think about what we've done to our bodies. I had a great conversation with the young lady today. And this really brings up the clinical insight number 2. So we're going to slide right into it. So the first one is, listen, after you have that weekend, you played, you did whatever, just getting back on track is often not enough. You got to go above and beyond. You got to get a little better rest. You got to eat not kind of good. You got to be spot on. You're fasting, all of the things that you do to know how to level up your health, get an extra sauna session, an extra training session, whatever it may be. That's when you got to go earn it back, because you just spent your good health, just like you spend your good money. All right. The next one is young lady about my age. We're chit-chatting. There's 2 things I want to bring up about this one. So one, she is doing the carnivore challenge, and I haven't heard a word from her in 2.5 weeks or over 2 weeks now. And yet, lo and behold, she comes in today. One, she looks fantastic. I already know what's going on. I've been doing this long enough where it's very easy for me to look at an individual, look at a human being, and know if they're inflamed and if that inflammation is coming from food or, food and alcohol. Everyone can do it. If you just paid attention for like an hour, you'd figure it out. Anyways, I saw her and I was like, wow, this looks good. I can't wait to have a chat with her. And in with her, she brought her what we call her her composition test, her body composition test. We call it the Truth Slayer in the office. If you guys are around, remember, it's free. You just no charge. You can just come in, kick your shoes off, get on a thing. It's a body composition test. And I love it because it keeps score for us. And a lot of good things: body fat mass, skeletal muscle mass, left arm versus right arm, water weight, percent body fat, visceral fat, all these really nice markers to see what direction we're heading into. And this was one of those moments, thank goodness we had it, because it also tracks your previous ones. So I asked her, how you doing? Pretty good, but I still got this. And she's kind of talking about how she still has a couple, like extra weight. She's implying midsection or something. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't know why I haven't seen the test yet. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that test has to look good because she looks fantastic. Better than I've seen in, I don't know, maybe 2 years. I don't know, maybe longer. I don't know, because the inflammation's gone. And sure enough, I look at the test and lo and behold, she's down over 10 pounds.
10 pounds for a while.
Yeah. And I couldn't really see, my eyes weren't working that good, so I couldn't see the actual date the 10 pounds is. But nonetheless, she's down 10 pounds from some point prior to this particular test. It looked like a couple tests ago. Anyways, my point of bringing this up is let's make sure that we are always having some opportunities to measure in reverse and know where we came from. I don't know that we do that often enough to say, where was I? And that could be anything in life. It could be where you are with your financial well-being, your professional status, your relationships, and your health, right? Especially when it comes to losing weight. Rarely, if your obsession is losing weight, do you ever get satisfied with the weight loss. And that's why so often here in Health Made Simple show, I try to convert that into function physiology and feeling good, because that is what really should be the driving factor. So we had a good conversation. In that conversation, she's like, why isn't more gone? And I said, yeah, we're not 20. We're paying back right now, right? Like we're paying back decades of abuse. I've been in healthcare for a fair amount of time, and I've been pretty good half of that time, really good, I think probably 25 to 30% of the time in healthcare. Most people haven't been in that long in terms of really, really good. When I say I've been dialed in probably under 10 years, but in, doing good for more than that. So
and taking care of yourself, you're saying, right?
Correct. Yeah. And really like dialing in my own health. And I'm in healthcare and I've been doing this for a long time. And so I used to get my fitness right, but I didn't get the nutrition right. Or I got the nutrition right and the fitness right, but I didn't get my sleeping right. So there's so many things that we probably have to be paying back, the debt that we put our body and our mind through. So make sure there's a couple of things that if you do play over the weekend, no, just be fair to yourself. And no, you got to pay back. You got to pay back the $500 that you just spent on your body. And then the other part is make sure you measure in reverse. Make sure that you recognize the work that you're putting in. And sometimes if things were rolling downhill really fast and you put brakes on that and it's not going as fast, that's a win as well.
Awesome. I think those reflection points, Bart, are like the only way in which we can recognize those moments to win. And I know that here we're big fans of that. Like celebration is great.
It is. And I love the idea of celebrating. I love the high five component of it. I love all of the opportunities that we have to celebrate. I don't think it's done enough. And I think that's, if we did it more often, I think we would see even greater results, because the truth is it's fun to celebrate, especially if you have people you can celebrate with.
It's a beautiful thing. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Should we dive in?
Yeah. Did you have one more clinical insight?
No, it's just those two. I kind of smushed them together.
Beautiful. All right. So Earth Day, just around the corner.
Yes. Earth Day coming up. My wife's absolute favorite. I'm going to call it a holiday because that's kind of how we treat it. I don't know that it is, but we're going to call it a holiday. It's my wife's favorite. She's the one who made sure that we were going to speak about Earth Day today. So a little shout out to her. And I love it. I love to watch the passion. Oddly enough, and she's probably listening, but it reminds me of a lot of what my father taught me as a young boy about the earth. And I see the same kind of kindness and generosity of time and energy and effort and consciousness that the two of them have in common. So it's kind of a nice little thing to just be in an observation of. So I'll start off by saying a couple of things. One, for tonight's show, so often here in the Health Made Simple show, we're talking about how to level up, right? How to level up our own bodies, how we move, how we eat, and how we think. Tonight is all about Mother Nature. How are we going to help Mother Nature level up? And let's dive into it. And ultimately, what that means is that we're going to have to level up our consciousness. And not to say that we're unconscious, because I don't believe that. I believe we're conscious by choice. And then there's some unconsciousness, a lot of that taking place. But I think that we have to level up our consciousness. Now, in doing so, I'll point out some of the obvious things first. It's not always convenient to be very conscious. Yeah, that's reality. It's not always convenient. So I'll give you a simple example. Over the years, I've recognized the destruction of fertilizers and pesticides and herbicides on Mother Nature, on the damage so those things we spray on our lawn. I recognize how damaging they are to our animals, to your dogs. So everyone out there listening to dogs, yes, your animals being poisoned by those lawns that they're running in, by their absorbent paws, and they're bringing all those chemicals in their body. It took me many years to figure that out. It took some scratching of the head and really good observation. But now that I know that, it's actually become quite inconvenient because I know that. And the reason is because I don't use any of those pesticides on my lawn anymore. And I am the weeder. Yes.
So you are the one who is taking care of that problem.
Yes, I am managing that. And that's not super convenient. And so be it. So be it. And that's one of the ways that I choose to contribute to giving back to Mother Nature a little bit, but also giving back to not just, Mother Nature, but other humans, but also my animals.
I think there's this sweet element of kind of equal exchange when we start to think about the way in which we're treating the earth. And maybe there can be a little reflection point of how like we too are benefiting from that.
Yeah. So yeah, no doubt. And I think it really is if we think, and I love when we use the phrase Mother Earth, because you all automatically feel like you need to be kind, right? And to be generous and to be caring. And it makes you make mature decisions and all of those things. So what does it really mean to be conscious? It means that we are actively participating in understanding the decisions that we're making and the actions that we're taking. And knowing that these decisions and actions are going to have an impact one way or another. They're happening, whether we ignore them or not. So tonight's title is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The ugly part of this is when we flat out just ignore. So
it really is a case in which like our personal choices and these conveniences can have an effect that's probably a lot bigger than we may realize.
Absolutely. I think, and we're going to get into some things tonight that I hope will open up your eyes. I know my wife and I discussed a lot of different things relative to our ability to contribute back to nature and back to Mother Nature. And although some might say, can one person really make a difference? And I'm going to argue that the answer is yes. And I'm going to give some examples of how and why. So I think what gets lost in some of this when we talk about Mother Nature, especially over the last several years, is that are we talking about climate change? Or are we talking about Mother Nature? Are we talking about pollution? And it all gets a little convoluted. And more often than not, I recognize that recently with all the conversation, I'd say arguments that are happening around climate change and somehow how it appears that they've become politicized, that people kind of back up and act as if this has nothing to do with me. This is on a higher level. This has to do with major corporations and politicians. And I want to kind of argue against that today and say that that's not entirely true. And if we just took out climate change or, climate warming just for a moment to say, listen, let's get back to what we were taught when we were kids. You're not supposed to pollute.
I remember like all of the cute ads literally growing up in the 80s and 90s of like awareness of the earth. And you're right. Like, I'm glad that you bring that up because a lot of that has fallen by the wayside because there's like political angle on it. But the earth is still here.
Yeah, 100%. So let's just, in tonight's conversation, let's just think, and how many different ways could we benefit the earth? How could we maybe reduce pollution? We got 8 billion people or so, 8 billion people in the world.
A lot of people, Bart.
Yeah, a lot of people. Every one of us is polluting. So that's kind of the bad part of this. And I'm going to be saying some things like that, but there's also a good part of it. 8 billion people could be contributing to Mother Earth. And no different than our personal health. There are some things that we have to do, like age, but we can do really good things to counterbalance some of those aging processes. So the consciousness, again, not always convenient, no doubt about it. Yet I'm hoping that tonight, what has happened for me and for my wife, and I know for a lot of people listening to this, that you get, it's almost like sometimes once the truth is exposed, you can never ignore it again.
Yeah, I can't unsee it.
Yeah, I can't unsee it. So I want to share a couple of things that I think will lay some impact on that. And especially if you have children, I have some suggestions for you to have an impact in your life. My wife and I talk about this one a lot, and this is about landfills. So if you've ever lived by one or driven by one or seen one, it's horrifying. To me, it is. There are these mountains, literally mountains of garbage. I've gone to landfills. I've gone and dumped things there, debris and waste and old washers and dryers. And when I go there, I inevitably have this just yucky feeling of overconsumption and very wasteful. And there's this one section right here in town. When you go there, there's where all the washers and dryers and appliances go. And there's hundreds. And earlier that week, or sometime every single week, they compact them. That means they just showed up that week.
Wow.
And when I step back and look at that, and here I am dumping one off my truck, I'm like, oh, ouch. You know what I mean? Like, what? Just I'm doing. So this is what I would say. So here's the funny thing: they call them landfills, but when I was growing up, they called them dumps, and that's what we should be calling them. They're a dump. And so back to the conversation about, and I promise folks, we're going to go into some cool things too here about what we can do about how we can impact Mother Earth in a positive way. In the event that you think you can't contribute, or you think it doesn't matter what we're doing, and we're gonna go into a couple of things tonight. We're definitely going to talk about plastics. We'll talk about chemicals. We're going to talk about food waste. That's a huge one.
That's a huge one, yes.
Yeah, and then we'll talk about water as well. I want you to imagine, so as we're having this conversation through the whole day, whole evening here, we're talking about plastics or chemicals or food, whatever it may be, and you think that what you do doesn't matter. I'm arguing big time that it does. And here's how I want you to imagine this. Just for 1 week, roll with me here, experiment. If you think it doesn't matter, if you have a backyard, I want you for 1 week just to put your garbage in your backyard. Okay.
So are you talking about putting like all of the trash onto the ground in the backyard?
Correct. Just dump it out in the backyard. Yes.
Yikes.
And if that didn't have an impact, do it for 6 months. See what your trash for 6 months would do to your backyard.
Bart, I got the creepy crawlies already.
I hope so, because that's exactly what it should give us. All right, now let's just say that you live in an area that they do an amazing job at recycling, which unfortunately is less than 5% of the plastics in our entire country are recycled. I don't even know if 5% of anything is more than 5% of anything is recycled. That's kind of another topic. It's a bummer, but that's the truth. So now I want you to imagine that you just took your plastic bottles and you threw all of them into your pool. Every time you get done your water bottle, toss it into your pool. Every time you got done your soap bottle, toss it into your pool. Every time you got done your salad dressing bottle, toss it into your pool. Every time you got done your Tide bottle of, chemicals, whatever it is, toss it. But every plastic bottle, toss it into your pool.
It's not cute.
No, it's not cute. We're going to talk about plastics in a moment. This is where the ugliness gets.
Yes.
450 to 1,000 years, basically never, is how long it takes it to biodegrade plastics.
450 to
1,000. Yeah, basically forever. They don't degrade. And then when they do degrade, here's the problem. They're leaching chemicals. They leach chemicals right back into the earth. So
I know the upside's coming, Bart, but we got to hear this. We have to hear the ugliness of it.
Yes. So that's the ugly part. And that's so I was going to wait to get to plastics, but there is a thing called I've always heard of that's called the plastic island. I think it's called the Pacific Garbage Patch. Pacific Garbage Patch. When you're done listening to the show tonight, or if you want to put us on pause and you want to Google that, Google it. I don't know. You'd have to Google it and look at the size of this thing. It's between Hawaii and California. It is 3 times the size of France. So three of France's, This is how big the plastic swirl of just bottles and garbage. 2 times the size of Texas, just to give you a reference. And just all it is garbage just floating out in our ocean. And it's getting closer and closer to California, like up in the San Francisco area.
It's truly horrifying, Bart.
Horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. Yeah. And that's predominantly like fishing nets and plastics, things that don't degrade. And you can only imagine what it's doing to the marine life and what kind of ecosystem it's developing on its own. So, man, not so good. Like, and that's the part where I think that's the ugly part, because for the most part, every one of us is contributing to that. Imagine just your backyard and your pool, right? If you just put all your plastics, that's a smaller version of what's happened in the plastic island. So can we do some things about it? We sure can. All right.
Yes. What can we do about it, Bart? Please tell us.
So let's dive in, and let's first talk about plastics for a moment. I gave you some subtleties there. Now, I think the statistic is the average American uses 156 water bottles per year.
And that's just water bottles.
Just water bottles, plastic bottles. And maybe it's plastic bottles. Either way, a ridiculous amount. And there's definitely a way we can change this. So you see, you just had a glass bottle. I've got a kind of a metal cup here. We use glass wherever we can, over at our balance and whatnot. And it hasn't always been that way. This was an ongoing learning process. I love this story my wife tells. She tells all the time. One of her favorite, kind of like her yoga, birthplace is out in San Francisco. One of her good mentors is out there. She would take her trips out there every year to go learn and study, be part of their culture and meet all her friends out there. And when she was traveling, she would get her plastic bottle that she could bring on the plane, and she'd reuse it. And she went to one of the yoga training sessions out there, and the girls gave her shit.
It came for her.
Yeah, they did. And they were just, quite frankly, that their community was just so far advanced, like in the consciousness. And that's, again, that's conscious decisions, that it was okay also if you caught someone off track, you could just call their shit out. So I remember her taking offense to it, but I don't think she's had a plastic bottle since.
A whole change happened right in that moment. Yeah.
So I'll go farther with that. So now we have a restaurant, a Prema Organic Cafe. And if you've been in there, people recognize that we have glass bottles. Anybody who's put on their business cap before looks at that and goes, that's probably pretty expensive.
They wouldn't be wrong, Bart, but my goodness, we adhere to it, don't we?
We do. Yeah. And I will tell you that was rooted because some individual at some point told my wife that plastic is destroying the earth, and they were not wrong.
And when we talk about conveniences, like the glass bottles are heavy, and like you and I know, it's difficult to like even have storage area to put all of those bottles. And when we're packing them up for you guys, like when you get a couple juices at Prema, but it's worth the effort. Like that's trading the convenience, right?
100%. And it's also knowing that your actions they're doing something, they're adding up to something. So I love, and for everyone listening to you, so many of you are patrons of Prema. I appreciate you more than you think. That we don't survive without you, and thank you. Because the beauty is that those same patrons, we don't call it recycle. We basically, my wife has a phrase for this, but we basically re-sanitize them and use them again. So that right there is part strategy. And so there's a tagline when it comes to the Mother Earth kind of like programming, and it's, I better get this right. It's reuse, recycle, and
is it reduce?
Yes,
recycle?
yes. Reduce, recycle, reuse. Reduce, reuse, recycle. And we can apply that in pretty much any situation. So reduce would be, let's just say that you were buying plastic water bottles yesterday, you no longer do it today. Yes.
Just like that.
Just like that. And it's an easy one because for the most part, every one of us has access to, whether it be an aluminum cup or just something, right? A steel canister or a glass bottle, and it's kind of getting back on track. And yes, the glass doesn't damage the earth. That's a big one. Even if you do not recycle it, folks, it doesn't damage the earth. And that's a big component of this. So plastic, we can't get rid of it, and it does damage the earth. So that's an easy one. And then you could reuse those. So we could reduce, of course, by not buying the one-time plastics. And I think that would be a good way to look at it. Let's just say you're listening to this and you don't want to be overwhelmed. You don't want to feel guilty about everything. I'm not telling you to do that. Not to walk around with guilty. Oh my goodness, I have this and that. Just see if you can do better. This is the same approach we take right here at the Health Made Simple show for our health. Let's just see if we can do better. We're not talking about perfection, but better. So if tomorrow your goal was, all right, I'm going to limit my one-time use plastic bottles. Those would be the ones that, let's just say you use Tide detergent, plastic, but 2 aisles over or 2 boxes over, they have a box of Tide. Biodegradable, not biodegradable. We could start just making simple decisions like that. So those one-time usage, those plastic bottles of one-time use, and we get rid of them, that's where we need to make the change.
Amazing. And it's really cool that there's quite a lot of things on the market that haven't been around for like, there's only ever more options to choose like a greener path.
100%, 100%. Like I know, like, for example, Publix, they have a whole green wise section and they'll have, even their materials a little bit different. I don't know the whole theme behind that, but there's just so many more options nowadays. Heck, I just learned the other day that I can use cardboard to help my compost.
Really, Bart?
Yeah. So like we take all this compost from Prima and I dump it, and then you lay cardboard over it and it biodegrades into it. And then like the worms like it and the larvae like it. I don't know. I'm just listening to Instagram.
I think it's leading you on a good path. I've heard of this part. I think it's real. So, yes.
Because, we do utilize, shipping, and we get boxes here and there. So now we take a fair amount of that cardboard and we're able to put it in the compost. We'll talk about that in just a moment, because there's some creative things that even small communities are doing now with compost and whatnot. So that idea right there to reduce the usage, especially these plastic bottles. If you were going to tackle or go after one, that'd be a silent one. And most likely, folks, in these subtleties, no one's ever going to high five you for them. So don't necessarily look for the edification. You might never receive it other than from Mother Earth. Mother Earth will be sleeping next to you every single night and will be appreciating the fact that you are no longer damaging her as much as you might have once before. So
that's the truth. And we've got a suggestion here on Zoom from Carla about making your own products too. So it's a way that you can reuse your like glass containers. You can put different stuff in them. Yes, cardboard and grocery brown bag to layer your compost, Bart. That's another one. Grocery bags.
Yes. Grocery bags. Yes. Well, let's talk about that one for a moment. So this is a simple one that my wife and I employ all the time. We go to the store, we have to buy one item, whatever. They put it in the bag out of just being kind and convenient to you. You don't take the bag. If you can carry them, if you've got enough hands and arm space, carry it. No big deal. Because when you get home, what do? It's just a convenient thing that you scoop it up, just like the bag, and you walk it into your house, versus grab a couple items and put them underneath your arms and bring them into the house. And as much as we shop and much as we could do consume, that is a big one. So when we talk about the reusing, the next time you go to throw things out, think about donating them. There's a lot of people in need. Every time I go to that, to the landfill for something, I look and I'm like, man, I wonder how many people could have used this or that or whatnot. So there, almost every community is going to have some version of a Goodwill or a Salvation Army or something, where a lot of the things that you may no longer be of value to you might be of super value to other people. Blankets and pillows and bedding, all of that stuff. So at least consider, instead of throwing things out, let someone else reuse them.
It's a fantastic way to pay it forward, Bart.
Agreed. So plastics, I don't know. What else should I say about plastic other than, listen, if for some reason you think, well, I don't know, a big deal. I don't use that much plastic. We use a lot of plastic. And go take a look. Google that. I think I just call it the plastic island, but I think it's called the Pacific garbage patch. I think that's what it's actually called. And it's just horrifying. If you've never brought your children to a dump, you can call it a landfill if you want. Kelly and I were driving up to Alabama not too long ago, and we looked at the side and it was fenced off, and there was all these trees, beautiful trees. But I couldn't understand what was on the other side of it because it was like trees that had flowers and it was straight up in the air like a wall. And we were just driving along, and it was like a couple minutes we were driving. And I was like, wow, that's a landfill in the middle of their nowhere. So they're bringing like almost like hiding in this little town. And it was just horrifying. It was thinking, oh my goodness, we're all just consuming and consuming and consuming and dumping this. And what if it fills up? Then where does it go? And I think I can imagine for people that live in the cities, they're most likely able to see some of this stuff because it's not very easy to get rid of, the garbage for millions of people.
Yeah, that's the truth. Okay, Bart, so for plastics, we can reuse them, we can reduce them.
Yes.
We can do a little bit of recycling there. I wonder if we should hop next to water.
Yeah, let's talk water for a moment. So the big one we'll talk about water is usage. Here's the way it works. There's two parts. If we are using more water, then they're going to add more chemicals to help make more water available for us. That's the simple formula. So we have a little bit of a water shortage because we have a lot of people and we're using water for so many different things. So you want to get back to Mother Nature? There's a couple of things we can do. One, take a shorter shower. Get in when it's cold, right? Instead of waiting for the shower to heat up, now you're both winning. Mother Nature's winning and you're winning. I haven't quite got that.
But we don't have to purchase a cold plunge. We could just get into the shower earlier when it's cold, get stronger.
Get stronger.
Healthier.
Everybody wins. It's a win-win situation. So that would be fantastic. And just keep in mind, the more water we use, the more chemicals are put into our water system. And we could almost right from there, I could almost just skip right into, because that's a real simple one, consume less water. So the other thing about that is this, is if I'll slide into planting trees right now. The more trees we plant and green we put back versus these big open spaces, very much like, big ag right now, agriculture, because there's nothing in the soil to hold the moisture in, there's a lot of runoff. So the water goes, the soil goes, and it's a lot of waste. We saw that when a couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with Will Harris from White Oaks Pastures. An unbelievable view of a video that they took of when they have, just a monoculture, crops, where you're planting in the same area over and over again. Well, granted, most of us are not doing that with our lawns. But we do have to make some considerations for when we participate in living in a nice little cute community that they just plow down all the trees and a big open space. And now the water doesn't have anything to absorb in, so it runs off. So there's a lot of wasted water. And as a result of it, now we have to put more chemicals back into the water to supply those homes. There's a local community, I won't name the name, because I know some people live there. I used to live there. It's some of the poorest water quality in the entire state of Florida, which is hard to believe because we have so many natural springs here. And when the water qualities were done, some people had some real bad issues as we were living there. You can get your water tested essentially for free. It was tested for free and it came back off the charts. Things like fluoride and bromide and all different types of chemicals. And then when we contact the water treatment plants, we say, why? And they said, well, because everyone there is constantly putting fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides on their lawns, these little patches, and spraying with so many chemicals that we have to counterbalance those chemicals with chemicals. When we take this into health, this is like real stuff, because when we have more fluoride and bromide in the water system, which they're there, folks, and fluoride is not great for your teeth, no matter what you've been told, but the more that's there, one of the simplest and most concerning things when it comes to our health is what it does to the thyroid function. So you might be perfect diet, eating good, doing all this stuff, but because you're showering in warm, hot water that has fluoride and bromide in it, and really what that does, it's one of the halogens and it blocks the thyroid receptor. So you can't get iodine into your body. And then you get what's called either Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism. So these chemicals are really having an impact on us. So how do we help? We conserve our water. We take shorter showers. We're mindful of when we're washing our dishes and we're spraying things off. If we're mindful of it, I had a lesson when I lived back in Atlanta and I practiced there. They had a water shortage, and depending on where you lived in the hours of the day, you no longer could water your lawns. You had to have a very tight water schedule. And it got a little edgy up there because someone would be watering their lawn and saying, well, if I don't water, it's going to die, to spend all this money on it, whatnot. And I remember trying to see how fast I could take showers but still be relatively clean. And I was like, man, I spent a lot of time in the shower that's probably unnecessary. And I don't know how many gallons per minute are flowing by, but they're all being taken from Mother Nature. And then once they go down that drain, they have to be retreated, which means more chemicals back into our system, more chemicals into Mother Nature.
I know that you and Kelly have been on a mission to plant some pretty cool stuff up at the farm. I think trees were in there. I wonder if there's a component we can talk about trees and water too.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that just a little bit. Growing up, my father had a kind of a general rule that he taught my brother and I, and it was, if you cut it, you plant it. So if we took a tree down, and we lived kind of a little bit out in the woods, we had a couple acres of land, and we worked outside all the time. And sometimes we would cut down a tree for firewood for that winter, but we always planted. And that was just a given. So whether it be a small tree or a big tree, but we always planted. And same thing we're doing right now at the farm. There's almost this, you have this land and be like, well, what if I just clear it all out and make it all really pretty? And then you step back and be like, well, man, what about Mother Nature? What about the pollination? What about the bees and the animals and everything else that is participating in this very complex thing called Mother Nature, participating in their own ways? So we did clear a section, let's say roughly, it's probably about a half acre or an acre, and then we planted an orchard. So we planted some trees that we know will be 20 and 30-year trees there. So we're super excited for that. It's one of those scenarios where you do it and it's not super sexy because they're like Charlie Brown trees. And so it's like we did all this work and really nurtured the soil and brought back a lot of good, we'll just say quality to that part of the property. And now we get to hurry up and wait and watch. But it's very sad. It's very satisfying, quite frankly, to know that, we're adding to instead of taking away. And I've been on the other end of that. I've built houses before, and I've participated in clearing a lot down to the dirt. Look back in that, and it never felt good, to tell you that. Never felt good.
I think it will feel really good when your Charlie Brown trees start to get a couple green leaves on them, Bart. It'll be a rewarding moment.
So some of them, the apple trees, which is so interesting, they make little baby apples right now.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like a teaser. So here's the other thing about trees. So we go back to what we started with, the whole greenhouse thing. So we're, the climate change. Trees, that's what they do. They counterbalance greenhouse effect. So they counterbalance this whole climate change. So there's an opportunity for every one of us. Maybe you don't have room to plant an orchard, but you probably have a pot that you can plant a nice little tree in. Whitney, you've probably been on the receiving end of probably one or more of my wife's gifts.
I am so lucky. I have quite a few around.
Yes, it's very interesting. So my wife will probably, you've known her long enough now, she'll probably never get you a gift that she bought from a store.
That's the truth.
Yes.
The plant she planted every time.
Yeah, every single time. And what's nice about it, then it always gives the individuals, it's like a gift of life. So now you'll always have this connection. And it's really, I think, quite special. Like I grew up with jade plants, they're succulents. That was my father's primary plant, and randomly enough, it's the same thing for my wife. For every one time I see one, and that's what my dad used to give all our relatives as a gift. I think it was the funniest thing. He gave me one in college, and I was like, "Well, Dad, what am I going to do with a jade plant in college?" Anyways,
what a cool dude! I love that so much, Bart. Yeah. I think you were playing rugby and stuff, and he's like, "All right."
Completely, and I had a jade plant. I'm like, I don't even know. All right, I got a jade plant. And heaven forbid I let it die. So I remember carrying it around in my car and being like, I got a jade plant. Yeah. So anyways, we can plant trees and we can plant things. And you know what's so wonderful? This is the good part of this. When we were looking around for all our plants and everything, we discovered that a lot of these companies that now have, especially we were going to the specialty plants, where they were grown in organic soils and whatnot, they were all sold out. So this is the good. People are making this stuff happen. People are doing it. people are growing and planting more. There are more vegetables more, on so many different levels. And I think that's what's fantastic about it. I think people have decided, and I don't know the motivation, maybe they're thinking I might just have to feed myself next year or whatever it may be, but nonetheless, more people are getting back to planting. I've talked about it many times in the show. I think so many of us, especially in my demographic of being around 50 years old, almost all of us grew up with some type of a garden, and then they just disappeared for over 30 years and or maybe longer. And now I think they're coming back. Like everyone is having a new version of some type of garden, a plant garden, a fruit and vegetable garden, or something. And I think it's absolutely wonderful. So I like the idea of this taking place. And just a little bit good here too. I just rattled off some really bad statistics about the plastics, and that is a bad thing. If you go and you Google that and you see how big it is between our country, the United States of America, and whatever continent is over there, and this big plastic island, it's bigger than most countries sitting out in the ocean, and it's growing. It's not shrinking. So that's scary. Yet what we also know now from the satellite views is that we are probably at the greenest state in our world than it's been, I think, for over a decade, or maybe it's 2 decades. So the good news is some of the policies that have been put in place, and I know the current administration is working really hard right now to really put a crackdown, a smackdown on the forever chemicals, which I love hearing this stuff. So too often there's money behind these things, and no one really, inhibits it. But the individuals, we can do it. Remember, and if you're wondering, can I make a difference? Think about your pool, throw all your plastic into your pool for a month or 2 straight and see whether or not that makes a difference in the quality of your life. Right? Or throw all the garbage in the backyard and dump it out, though. Make sure you dump it out so it's not a nice, neat little bag. Dump it out, spread it out, and dump it in your backyard and see how well that works out. And you'll definitely say, well, I can have an impact. All right. So let's roll farther a little bit so we don't run out of time, because I do want to talk about chemicals. And we'll talk about food.
Can you remind us what forever chemicals are, Bart? Why are they called that?
Because they are here forever. They do not go away. And there's over 100 of them right now. And it's just scary. They have a name. I think it's called PCFAs. And it's just scary that we're producing these things, and some of them are in our food, a lot of them in our products. I'll give you an example. Flame retardants. That's a huge component of them, and that means everything from like the stuff that's on your waterproof couch right now. Those are some of the forever chemicals. I'm not going to pick out any brands, but certain yoga wear and just those really neat, fun, stretchy clothes that never fade away and all that good stuff. Because there's forever chemicals in there. So we got to start being mindful. And it might mean that it's not super convenient. Yeah, it's Mother Nature, right? So yeah, if we're not paying attention, we're going to get ourselves in a little trouble. And there's evidence right now that we're getting ourselves in trouble.
So with these forever chemicals, Bart, do you find that like if you go seeking an alternative, let's say to like a mattress, just as an example, are there other things on the market that would not have like flame retardants in it?
Yes, 100%. So the ones we have in our house, and I didn't know this, not even 10 years ago, until I went to a conference and they were promoting. So this bed has no chemicals. I didn't know beds had chemicals. Yeah.
Wouldn't think it. I would not think it.
Yeah. So I did not know that beds had chemicals. So I did a little deeper dive, and then I found out that a lot of these chemicals leach right into the body because you're on there with your skin's contacting the bed, and the chemicals are leaching right into the body. And they're a big influence on things like hot flashes and hormone imbalances. So, my ears opened up, my eyes were like glaring. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? Did some more study and found out that 99 to 100% of all mother's breast milk had flame retardant detected in it. That's not good news. No,
that's not good news.
Yeah. So there are some beds, IntelliBed. That's the name of, I'm glad I came up with that. It happened to be a brand that we use, and we absolutely love them. We have a couple of these mattresses. They're phenomenal. They just use a different material and there's no chemicals. So there are definitely companies out there that do it. So you have to seek them out. Convenient? No. Right. But super conscious as well. Super conscious. And there's levels of this. So maybe today you're thinking, well, maybe the next bed I get is not going to have chemicals. And maybe that's the one.
And sometimes there's things that maybe we would have thought about for chemicals. So I think about like things that we put on our skin, maybe like bug sprays.
Yes. So, there's, yeah, like so many of those things are coming from aerosols. We're spraying on them. Even the water tests that were done. So a lot of them will test all the chemicals that are in the water. So let's say you get your tap water tested, and the common answers come back because they don't want to say that they're causing all these chemicals. So the common denominator they'll say is that it's discharge from fertilizer. So it's kind of confusing to the consumer when you say like, where are all these chemicals coming? But it's coming from all the stuff, all of that stuff. And those other chemicals that we're rubbing on our skin, rubbing on our, onto our body, we're spraying suntan lotions on our body, and all these things are going directly into our pores. So there's so many alternatives that don't have to necessarily, there's suntan lotion. There's another one, plastic bottle, right? We squirt it on there. We're putting forever chemicals into and onto our body. And then all of a sudden we're throwing the plastic bottle away. So there's just ways that we can go about it. Not always convenient, but certainly effective as well. So there's ways to serve Mother Nature, just like we're serving ourselves to level up. This is our opportunity to level up our consciousness at the same time supporting our one and only Mother Nature.
So moving to a topic that we get to chat about a lot here on the show is food, Bart. How can we elevate our consciousness around food in a way that supports Mother Nature?
Yeah, so this is a real interesting one, and it's a conversation that I wish would come up more often when we hear the powers to be talk about things like climate change, because I think this is an area that immediately I think people would come together on a lot more than the topics they are right now, because I think they're very divided in, when we talk about oil and whatnot. So just really quickly too, back to that oil, the plastic, just the water bottles in our country take 1.5 million, what are they called? Not buckets, but the containers, whatever you want to call, of oil, 1.5 million of these things per year. That's just to make the plastic. So we're complaining about all this oil usage, but we're not talking about its application in other areas like water bottles and whatnot. So, all right, so we're off plastics anyways. Let's talk food for a second here. When we have food or compost that's left, like dump extra, and it's not really composting, it's just left, it produces a lot of methane. It's not supposed to be wasted. In no situation would a carcass just go to waste, and it wouldn't let off that methane gas. It would be eaten by something else, absorbed by soil, something. But when it's put into these garbage, like into the dump, they don't break down, and they're letting off massive amounts of methane. And this is a problem. It's contributing to climate change. So there's some interesting things we can do, unfortunately, just check this out. About 1/3 of all the food that's produced is thrown away.
1/3, Bart.
1/3 of all the food that's made for human consumption is thrown away. Yeah. And it's thrown into dumps and it's thrown into these areas. It's not necessarily then given to the cows and the chickens. And that's where we're going to go with this, which is pretty cool. So that is problematic because that produces a lot of this methane gas, and that is contributing directly to, all this I guess we'll call pollution, but also the climate change. So let's reverse engineer that and say, all right, well, let's just stop wasting food. I know I could do a better job. And then if we are going to lose some of that food, what can we do with it? So apparently each individual, you, me, and everyone listening to this, will throw away about 300 pounds of food per year. There's only 365 days in a year.
Bart, I don't understand. One person, 300 pounds of food?
That's a statistic, yeah. And that could be everything.
Think of like every zucchini that goes awry, like in the fridge. Yes.
Yes, everything. All the salads that you ended up tossing in the plastic containers, right? All those bags of plastic, all of those different things. So when we start looking at that, if we just got a little bit more cognizant, more aware, more conscious of it. And some of the ways you can do it is if you buy it fresh, you got to use it. So there's more likelihood that you're going to use it. And then what can you do with it afterwards? That's the other big question. How about composting, which is phenomenal? Composting is one of the single best ways to just give back to Mother Earth and to give back to nature. And what really means that So let me tell you this real quick story about, and most of you have probably seen this somewhere on your Instagram. Well, if not, you will now because your phone's listening. So there's this little French town. I have no idea what the name of it is. They were trying to reduce the amount of landfill. They were recognizing landfill, remember, dump, small little town, not many people in it. They were trying to reduce it and they wanted to figure out how to do it fast. And realized that a big bulk of what's going into the landfill that's in our garbage pails on week-to-week basis is excess food and garbage and waste and peels and banana peels and all the scraps from the dinner table, all of that kind of stuff. So what they did was they offered 2 free chickens to every household.
Right, this is golden.
This is golden. So the purpose of the chickens, well, of course, the chickens could lay eggs and they could just get free food on a regular basis, which is pretty cool. But the chickens ate all the compost, ate all the food. So they gave everyone 2 chickens. And sure enough, I don't know the percentage, but it was pretty massive, where now many places are now looking into the opportunity to do 2 things. They're either going to give away worms or chickens.
What a simple solution.
Simple solution. Yeah. So we're super excited. You know, at Prema, we go again, super not convenient, yet we have all our byproduct is essentially, you know, fruits and vegetables and peels and skins and eggshells and whatnot, and coffee grinds. And those are all real things. So fortunately, along with some of our team members, we ended up getting these big barrels. If you've been by Prema, you look at the back and like, what are these big blue barrels? Well, that's where they put all the compost. And then the compost guy comes along, loads them up in his truck and brings them away. And I'm the compost guy. So
I want to tell you guys, these barrels are like bigger than a person and they weigh about 7 times as much. So we're glad Bart has a truck.
Yes, a truck and a tractor. Without the tractor, I wouldn't be able to do it. So we load all the stuff up in there and it's so heavy. It's unbelievable. So the very first week we did it with, this was just one of those moments I was like, awesome. I didn't really know, and I'm still learning how to compost properly. But right now I know I'm giving back to the nature, basically based on the amount of larvae and flies and bugs that are eating these things. Something's working there.
Something's cooking.
Yeah. But what's really fascinating is the very first week we started doing it, I noticed that we had less garbage pails going to the road.
And that's a real measurable difference, Bart. I mean, that is like, you and I see that twice a week of like literally the lined up garbage. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was really nice. That ripple effect of that. So we have less black plastic bags that we're putting all this stuff into. That's for one. So those are plastic bags. We're using less of those. There's less going out to the roads. It means those garbage trucks have to pick up less, right? So there's that compounding interest of there's just less going to the landfill. If that was my backyard, there'd be less in my backyard. So, and I'm by no way patting myself on the back, yet proud of the fact that myself, my wife, my team, you guys, all of us were contributing. And here's what I would say to everyone. There are businesses out there like ours, which I am glad to put ours in that category, that are doing this. And I would seek them out, find out their policies and procedures, find out what they do, if they do anything at all, and ask. I would say this, instead of asking if they recycle, because that's more up to the state and their policies and whether or not they're going to have the funding or set up, all the really the technical stuff that goes behind the scenes. Even here in Florida, it's sad, but we don't have a recycling, procedure. But the procedure could be this. The policy could be this. You consume less. You go to farmers markets, you buy local, you buy organic. And let's talk about organic for a moment, because we've done that to nausea here on this, on our show. I believe 100% that organic is the best thing that we should be putting into our body and for Mother Nature. When we're buying organic, you're also saying no to chemicals. And I don't think I mentioned that enough, but that is a big reason. When some people say, well, I don't know if there's enough nutrients in it. Well, you know what? We're not putting nutrients we're not putting chemicals in Mother Nature. So for those 2 reasons, it's better for the human, better for Mother Nature, good reason to stick to organic. So find businesses locally, and there are some. So I want to give a little shout out to Dan at Amavita. He has several coffee shops here. All of the containers that he uses, I know he does a good job on those. We get ours from him, meaning like all the things, like if you get like an egg sandwich and little thingy, those those little cardboard boxes that you get them in. We do our absolute best to find the most biodegradable ones. And there's some greenwash in there. There's some that really don't biodegrade. And then there's others that do. So all of the companies and the people and the individuals that are taking their best shots at, whether they're making better straws out there or they're just using less. And then there's simple things where, as we're wrapping up here, we can make some other conscious decisions. Let's just say right now, everything I've just said there just doesn't apply to you and it might be too far of a reach. There's some simple things here. Let's consume a little bit less than you need. One simple way is next time you go to to your coffee shop and you go to get a napkin, get one napkin. Don't get 14, right? So we've all done it. We've all grabbed a small stack when we've only needed one. And so there's little things like that. If you're getting condiments in those little bags, don't get 12 ketchups, get one, get two, get exactly what you need. So make some decisions there on consuming less instead of necessarily choosing to recycle, because I don't know that that's going to be available. But by consuming less, reusing more, donating more, those I think are going to be the ways that we can all make our subtle differences, and they will add up.
They sure will, Bart. Well, we've got one last great question for you this evening on the eve here of Earth Day. Bart, what is one step that our listeners can take towards becoming superhuman?
And I think what I would say there is choose to be more conscious, choose to be aware of your decisions and your actions, and everyone wins when that happens.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us here at the Health Made Simple show.
Yes, thank you guys for showing up once again. Keep doing the thing, keep sharing it out, keep spreading love, and of course, continue to level up, making sure that you take deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. That'll be awesome.